how do we gain the trust and respect of our women?
You have to go in the situation like a boss.
What can we do to hold those men accountable for their actions?
See, what I don't like are these people coming out after the fact like, yeah, I was a bodyguard, I was there, and I saw this. Well, nigga, you should have said something. You should have said something then.
What do you think about the people that's saying that how you should distribute reparations, or what black people should get reparations, or should all black Americans get reparations? Like, what is that conversation?
FBA culture is diverse and iconic. Foundation of Black Americans, we're the only group who have internationally respected and revered heroes and icons. We're the only people who have internationally respected people like Dr. King, Malcolm X, Ida B. Wells, Rosa Parks, Muhammad Ali, Tupac. We have so many globally respected icons that other people just don't have. Yeah, we have our riffraffs, but we can balance it out with our icons because we've done some phenomenal things as Foundation of Black Americans, and we created a phenomenal nation. The reason why America is phenomenal is because we made it phenomenal. We were exploited by the white supremacists, but the culture and all of the things that make this country great, that came from Foundation of Black Americans.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Daily Wrap-Up-Crew. No book of, I'll go by the name of Eli. Make sure y'all follow me on IG, man. The real Y Eli. Shoot me a DM. I promise you I can see them. I ain't got that much followers. I can see all the DMs. Like, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
Anyway, we got Ace in the building.
Yes, indeed. Coming to you direct, cutting out the middlemen. We like the middlemen because we always delivering. You heard? They used to go 24.
Yeah, you could tell he was tired, like, because that delivery was poor right there. And no pun intended. Last but not least, we got Jew.
They ain't gonna talk about delivery.
What it do? It's your boy Jew. And damn, I had one. Yeah, man, we just gonna keep it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I'm good. Tune in to the Daily Wrap-Up Crew.
Y'all slacking.
I got y'all by the end of the show.
We got
you know what I'm
important
saying?
people in the building, and that's how y'all show up, man. This crazy, man.
Yo, I had an FBA line too. I ain't gonna hold you.
And that would have hit.
That would have hit.
Man. Listen, man, this special guest here, man.
Right?
Nah, I just was saying it right now.
Oh, God.
Can we get on with the show?
I'm just saying.
Come on.
Yo, this guest right here is a very special guest. I know we said that about everybody, but this guy has been requested by you guys, you know, after we had the Rizas, the Umar, y'all said we got to go get this guy. So this guy right here is a film producer, director, he's an activist, he's a historian. He's best known for his films, Hidden Colors, his film series. We got Tariq Nasheed in the building.
Yes, sir. Indeed. Yes, indeed.
For the people living under a rock, you know, they might not be as familiar as we are. Can you just explain who you are real quick to the audience?
Yeah, man, I'm an author. I've written a lot of best-selling books. I wrote my first best-selling book, 2000, a book called The Art of Macking. I did relationship books. Then I started doing documentary films. I had a very early podcast called Mac Lessons Radio. That was one of the precursors to a lot of the Red Pill and relationship podcasts. Then I just started doing a whole bunch of documentary films focusing on untold Black history. The Hidden Colors series, we did 5 installments. That became one of the best-selling Black history series ever. I did a film called 1804 about the history of Haiti. I did a very popular film, one of my biggest films, a film called Buck Breaking, talking about the sexual exploitation of Black people historically. My last film was called American Maroon, talking about Black people who fought their way out of slavery. That's never talked about. And my current film is called Microphone Check, The Hidden History of Hip Hop. And that's why we're out here with you brothers chopping it up now.
Yeah, for sure.
Welcome,
So, like I said, you had the premiere on Saturday.
Out here in the SVA Theater in New York, and 2 sold-out shows. Had almost 1,000 people in the theater.
So what was people's reaction, or what was the general reception towards the documentary?
We got a standing ovation. People were so happy to see the true history being told about hip hop, because a lot of times, and as a historian, my job is to uncover untold history and history that's being deliberately hidden. And the real origin story of hip hop is deliberately hidden by the dominant mainstream society, because they have a vested interest in putting other people in our position or putting them on top of our history so that they can get credit, so they can get papered up off of our history.
Right.
And we're saying, no, we don't want that to happen. We don't want to be erased from our history. And the real pioneers of hip hop, many of them brothers and sisters are still alive, but they're not getting a platform to speak their truth. And I wanted to use this film to have them tell the truth about the history and make it definitive so there's no question about it anymore.
So I'm glad you put this documentary out, because I got into a lot of online debates about, like you said, the origin and who truly invented, hip hop or co-created hip hop. Was it Caribbeans? Was it Latinos? You know what I mean? Can you explain where that whole misconception is coming from? And, can you just talk about the origins?
Right. So these misconceptions started to come. The seeds of the misconceptions started to come in the early 80s. They tried to say that hip hop had a Caribbean root, which isn't true. This whole narrative that it was created by Blacks and Latinos, that started within the last 15 years. And that came from the corporate media, especially on the radio side, because they put a lot of non-Black people in program director positions, music directors. If you look at a lot of radio stations, many of the program directors at hip hop stations and urban stations are not even Black. And many of them are Hispanic or some other race. And they justify that by saying, okay, well, they helped create hip hop too, so that justifies putting these guys in these positions. And now that hip hop is a positive thing, it's going to the Olympics now. Whenever something is positive and Black people have something to do with it, they have to kind of tack on somebody else in order to facilitate the financial windfall that's going to come along with it. Now, when hip hop was negative, when it was looked at as degenerate, it was all Black. It was all thrown on us. When rappers were being targeted by the FBI, it was Black degeneracy. Now, again, now that there's a lot of money in hip hop is used in mainstream commercials. It's used in corporate situations. Now they have to kind of take it away from us, just like they did with rock and roll. They do this with all of our genres that we create. Country, just like our good sister Beyonce, they're trying to make it seem like she's a guest in a genre that we created. So we're saying we're not going to let this happen with hip hop. We're going to tell the definitive history. We got the original pioneers, and we're letting them tell the story from their own words.
Are you getting a lot of pushback from other groups of people?
At first we were, because a lot of people were saying, well, not including Caribbeans and Latinos, that's divisive. Okay, well, tell us what the Caribbeans brought to hip hop, because what they're doing is telling lies about what the Caribbeans brought. They're trying to say, for years, they tried to say that we got the sound system concept from the Caribbeans. That's not true. There were sound systems here. In Brooklyn, you had Grandmaster Flowers and people like that who had big sound systems. We already had sound systems. Then they tried to say, well, we got rapping from Jamaican toasting. Not true. Nobody heard Jamaican toasting records. In fact,
Jamaican toasting, what was that?
Right, Jamaica. That's like them talking over songs and kind of a patois sound. We didn't get that from them because, for number one, we didn't understand what they were saying. The people over here didn't have a way to hear those records. And in the movie Microphone Check, all of the pioneers clearly said we didn't know about Jamaican toasting, so we could not have gotten it from Jamaican toasting. We've been rapping since the 1920s, even farther. And this is just on record. We got records of us rhyming over beats. In the 1960s, there's records with people like Pigmeat Markham, where they're rapping over funk beats. James Brown rapped over beats. So we already rapped and rhymed over beats. Even b-boying, some of the breakdancing moves, we were doing that with some of the tap dancers, the Hines brothers, the Nicholas brothers, Little Buck, Peg Leg Bates. These are the people that the original b-boys were watching and emulating. So we're just putting the right perspective and the right history on where this stuff comes from. Because what they do, they'll say, well, hip-hop comes from the Bronx. They'll make it very abstract. The culture didn't just ooze up out of the sewer. It didn't fall out of a building. It came from people. Who were the people? Why did they create it? So that's what we're doing in the film. We're putting a humanizing taste on the culture.
Gotcha.
These were human beings that created something for a reason. There was social, economic, political reasons and situations that made these children, because understand, these were like 13, 14, 15-year-old kids who were being deprived of resources. They were being told, you can't go to that private school. You can't get tap dance lessons. You can't go to Studio 54. You can't go to the disco. So they just put them out here in the gutter and said, okay, fend for yourselves. So instead of these kids saying, hey, we're going to be like these heroin addicts that we see, they said, we're going to get our parents' funk records, play the breaks from them, do these moves we see on the variety shows, and then rap over the mic like we see the radio guys doing, and we're going to stay out of trouble that way. And that's a commendable part of history that we need to look at.
Do you believe that society didn't think that it was going to be so lucrative? That's why they left it to black people?
Right.
They took everything else.
That you remember, they always said it was a fad. They kept saying, yeah, this is cool. We're going to make a quick buck out of it because it's going to die off any minute. Especially in the 80s. They came out with all the breaking movies, Beat Street movies, so they really tried to get a fast buck off of it. But the thing is, hip-hop is so fluid, it kept evolving. The styles evolved because that's the nature of hip-hop. It's a evolutionary culture. And they didn't realize it was going to sustain itself this way. So now that it's sustained itself this way and it has gone global, you can go anywhere on the planet, people are dressing like hip-hoppers. People are using our slang. Now they're like, we can't beat them, let's join them, and not just join them, let's co-opt it and then take it and let's claim it for ourselves.
I can see that.
So when you said like, because you said hip hop's gonna be in the Olympics. Like,
yeah, they got b-boying. They're gonna have breakdancing in the Olympics this year in Paris. So yeah, they got b-boys all over the world. They got a couple of b-boys here that's representing the U.S. and b-girls. They got a lot of them from like Asia. They really, really study the culture out there. So yeah, it's a big part. It's a lot of money in it now.
Yeah. I thought there was rap battling or something.
Oh no.
That'd
be fire.
That would be tight.
You know what I mean? So what do you think about the overall evolution of? You spoke about the evolution of hip hop. You know, from it being much more political with the back in the day with the F the police, and now we have more of this over sexualized, over drug usage, kind of overly aggressive gang violence culture. Like, what's your thoughts on the evolution?
There's 5 elements of hip hop: DJing, MCing, b-boying, graffiti, and the 5th element people always forget, that's the knowledge. The knowledge was the thing that's supposed to codify everything and put integrity on it, so that if you have knowledge yourself, you're going to have rules and codes and standards. You don't bite from this guy. If you bite from somebody, you lose all your credibility.
True.
If you rap about drugs or using drugs, that was a no-no, especially in the 80s.
Right.
Crack is looked at as negative because of rappers. The only reason crack is looked at as a bad thing was rappers made it negative. Like, if you do crack, that's the dirtiest thing in the world. Now, popping Mollies and Percocets is cool because rappers made it cool. So there was a code, and because they had that knowledge, they understood what it could do to the community. Even the gangster rappers, when they rapped about gangster stuff in the 80s, they always had a consequence to the stuff they rapped about. I don't know if you know too much about West Coast rap, but you had groups like Compton's Most Wanted. MC8, he rapped about the hood took me under. He rapped about the one time gaffled him up. They talk about gangbanging, but at the end of the song, the guy died or went to jail. NWA, there were consequences in their early records. Ice-T, his records had consequences for all the gangster stuff. Now, now it's like, yeah, I'm shooting up this, I'm shooting up that, and I'm going to a party afterwards. So there's no consequence.
Or I'm gonna get a Jewish lawyer to beat the case for
right,
me. You know what I mean?
Right. So that's why cats out here got RICO charges. They're not rapping. Rap about them RICO charges now. You know what I'm saying? So right now, there's not balance no more. There should be a balance. I don't mind a sexy red, as long as we have a Lauryn Hill to balance her out.
I get that.
We don't have a Lauryn Hill no more. That's the problem. See, we had
we got Rap City.
But they ain't blowing her up though.
They ain't mainstream.
Yeah, they ain't mainstreaming her. In the 90s, we had Lil' Kim and Foxy Brown. But we had Queen Latifah, MC Lyte. Remember, Lauryn Hill's the MC too. We had a balance to that. We don't have all we get now is Sexy Red, Glorilla, Cardi B, Nicki Minaj. It's a one-track thing, and that's because of the corporate structure. We have to stop letting the corporate structure dictate the direction of our culture. And we have to say to them, no, we want balance. We want a Rhapsody, but we have to support that though.
That's all.
You know?
So how can we have, like, I feel like every time we try to have our own record labels, like you said, there's a RICO case or something like that. There's always something to try to take away those labels from Black-owned executive. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
And this is why people on the grassroots, we have to support these Black record labels and not let them do that. Since the beginning of hip hop, they've always put federal charges on rap labels. Sugar Hill Records had federal charges on them in the 80s. Jay Prince and Rap-A-Lot. Ruthless Records had the FBI looking into them. We know what happened with Death Row. Murder Inc. They were trying to investigate Master P No Limit Records. So that's been a thing. So we have to understand that. And people also, artists who have record labels, they need to be very cognizant of this too. They can't be out there giving these people the rope to get hung with, like Puffy. Puffy shouldn't have been out there doing all that weird stuff, letting these people build up a case against him. As we saw when the chips started going down, all of a sudden they got these magic tapes that they then sat on for years, showing him beating up on folks and beating up on women. They've been had that stuff. They were just waiting on the right time. So we can't give these people the rope to hang ourselves, you know?
So in situations like Diddy and these high profile celebrities that, you know, end up going down or whatever the case is, what can we do to hold those men accountable for their actions? Like, because again, you got the white power structure, they just taking them down, and then we're on top of it, just also, you know, adding on to what they got going on. So how does the Black community hold the people like Diddy accountable or whatever the case is? Like, what does that look like?
Well, all those people that were around him. See, what I don't like are these people coming out after the fact like, yeah, I was a bodyguard and I was there and I saw this. Well, nigga, you should have said something. You should have said something then.
Them niggas partaking.
You're partaking in it. Don't sit up there 2 to 3 decades later talking about you saw him whooping on somebody. You should have stepped in right there. Don't sit there because you're getting paid. Say something. You check dudes on that stuff. That's what we used to do back in the day. You don't give a damn how much money you got. You doing something weird, nigga. You doing something weird. Chill out with that bullshit. You're going to make the whole hood hot doing that. You understand? So that's how them RICO charges get popping. Dudes, they're doing something weird and people are sitting back not saying nothing, and then everybody gets charged. And now everybody's looking dumb. No, you got to check that stuff with folks.
Yeah, so, you know, obviously, I think we was talking about the Young Thug case. What do you think about court using rap lyrics and, like, you know, RICO cases or just cases in general? Do you think that should be a thing, or
no? Now some of that is very unfair. I don't like what they're doing with Young Thug and those guys because they try to do the all-in thing with us. With white folks, you know, they lone wolf them. If they do something, it's like, okay, he did it on his own. They don't talk about all the other people that was working with them. But with Black folks, they try to do a catch-all thing. They try to pretend everybody's in a gang. Like with Bobby Shmurda, I don't like how they put him in jail by saying that he was associated with a criminal gang. They did an all-in thing on him. And that wasn't fair. So we have to check that too. A lot of that is undeserved. So what's happening down in Atlanta, that's very political. That was that prosecutor down there trying to take the heat off of some of those white officers that we were protesting against, trying to get charged for harming Black people. So they let those white officers off, and then all of a sudden, hey, we got RICO charges on Young Thug, and that blows up in the media. So we got to understand when some people use smoke screens, even with R. Kelly, we're not co-signing anything R. Kelly is doing, but R. Kelly was a smoke screen. Because when the Me Too movement was going on, all of these powerful white men, people were looking at them. And then all of a sudden, R. Kelly, hey, look at R. Kelly, TV show about R. Kelly. You don't hear nothing about all these dudes. They'll do a white sacrifice, which is Harvey Weinstein. And also out here, they just dropped some charges on him. So they're trying to peel some of that stuff back to get him up out of jail. So we got to watch when they use us as smoke screens and not co-sign that either. But we're not co-signing any weird stuff from some of these dudes.
Yeah, we always been a component of having that same energy. And Gail, Oprah, I need y'all to interview the victims of Harvey Weinstein, because I was really vocal with Kels, like, you know what I mean? But we don't have that same, like, we just sweep Harvey under the rug. It's like, yeah, we get 1 or 2 cases, but then
because Oprah and Gail was up there skinning and grinning with Harvey, you understand? They were kicking it with him. There's a whole bunch of pictures, them on yachts and all that stuff with all them teeth showing now, but it's R. Kelly.
Right.
Why do you think it's so easy for them to use rap lyrics to go at people, but they don't use the same contradiction from other groups and organizations of people?
Because they understand now. The rappers don't understand the knowledge part. See, they tried that stuff back in the 80s and 90s, and we checked. The rap community checked them on that. The rap community fought back. When they were doing things unjust to the rap community said, okay, look, we're not going to let you throw us a bone and we go along and keep our mouths shut. Remember when they started to let rap in the Grammys, they were going to give a Grammy to Will Smith and Jazzy Jeff, but they said we're not going to televise it. So the rap community got together, in Will and those guys too, and said, hey, we're going to boycott this place. You're going to give us a Grammy, but no, we're not going to go if you're not going to treat us equally. I don't think cats would do that now. You know what I'm saying? I think cats are so scared of the industry.
The UNITY. That
Right.
spoke of
Yeah, they don't want to.
exist.
But yeah, they don't want to upset those white bosses at the record labels. Listen. Back in the 80s and 90s, especially in LA, dudes, man, the rappers would run up in record labels like it wasn't shit, with bats, guns. People think it was just Suge and those guys. It was a thing to, if they mess with your money or your publishing, them dudes will run up in a record label and kind of hem somebody up. They were not scared of them labels. Now, people do whatever the label tell them to do. Hey, put on a dress. And niggas out here putting on dresses, doing duets with Celine Dion and shit, man. So it's weird stuff going on out here right now.
It is.
I want to switch topics, but because this is a very controversial talking point on the internet, right? I go on TikTok and I see a lot of UK people speaking about black Americans, right? So what a lot of people, the UK, Africans, Caribbeans, a lot of their talking points is Black Americans or FBAs don't have culture. What do you say to those people who say that?
That's a projection. That's a projection because we are the culture here. Our lineage goes back to this country longer than the lineage to their country because their countries are relatively new, especially over there in West Africa. Not just West Africa, all of Africa. Many of those countries were basically created in the 1800s at the Berlin Conference. So they don't have a deep, rich culture. That's why a lot of them have to leave because of a lot of tribalism. They're not as deeply rooted as they're supposed to be. So they do a lot of projecting onto us. Our culture is so deeply rooted here. Everything about American culture that is good comes from foundational Black Americans.
True.
The food, the dance, the slang, the sports, the entertainment.
Dress, yeah.
They try to say you can't use those examples nowadays.
Why can't we? Foundational Black Americans created the modern doorknob. We created the modern toilet. We created modern dry cleaning. So many things that we've created. We created the modern home security system. I mean, we've had 50,000 patents. We can claim all of this stuff. All of the music genres was created by foundational Black Americans. We are the culture. And they know this because if you go to their countries, they're acting like us. We're not acting like them. They got on baseball hats and Nike shoes and stuff that we're wearing.
That's a fact.
And
90-degree weather.
Right. They ain't wearing kente cloth sweatpants. They're wearing Nikes and Adidas like we're wearing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
true.
So even when you went to say about how the countries in West Africa, like I've seen an old map of Africa before they had the invisible lines with the borders with the countries, and like you said, those countries didn't exist until like the time frame you said. So you know, when I hear this conversation, and I think you seen one of our clips, it was a Haitian woman, and she was like,
I definitely remember that.
You know, she was sitting on the couch and she was just like, "Oh, I can't date a Black American because Black Americans don't have any cultures," and that one just went crazy online because it just. While she's dressed like an American Black woman, she's sitting there talking about Black Americans don't have, like, you know what I mean? So that is always a kind of divisive talking point in the diaspora.
And they can never tell us what their culture is. Because when people call up to our lives and start talking about culture, I ask, what is your culture? They can never give an answer. You understand? We can give answers to what our culture is, all of the music and the foods. We can give that, but they can't really give an answer to what their culture is.
So,
and that's no disrespect to our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. We got love for you, but those who come over and try to denigrate us and project this weird thing, we will check them.
Why is it so easy for everyone to attack, you know, the culture of Black Americans?
The thing is, this is the game they play. With us, we are so inclusive. We share our culture with everybody. We're too damn nice.
Too damn nice.
That's been the problem, because whenever we do something, we say, okay, we chop it up to just global Africanness. We've been on that. So if we do something positive, we'll say, hey, our African brothers, you know, we got it, you know, probably from some tribe or whatever. We're share it with everybody. For a long time, we were sharing hip hop with the Caribbeans because they were like, well, Caribbeans help do it. And we're like, not really, but we'll share. We're all Black. We had that type of thing. And that was a mistake. Because what happens is a lot of these people who didn't create anything, we give them something, then they take it for granted and then say, hey, you know what? I did it and y'all didn't do shit and y'all ain't got no culture and we do. And we're saying, hey, we ain't playing that game no more.
Agree.
So how do FBAs or Black Americans, how do we go about preserving our culture from, you know, non-Black people or white people? Like, how do we go about preserving it?
Dictating the history, telling where it came from, just telling the truth about it, just like we're doing with the microphone check film. We're telling the truth about where MCing comes from. We're telling the truth about where graffiti comes from. That was created by a Foundation of Black American out of Philly in the 1960s, a guy named Cornbread, the first modern graffiti artist. That stuff is something that needs to be taught. It didn't just pop up out of nowhere. We were creating these things from socioeconomic conditions. We were being told that you don't matter, you're a nobody, you don't have a voice. So this kid gets a spray paint can and says, hey, I'm gonna spray my name all over the city. That's gonna be my canvas. I'm going to be somebody. And he got notoriety. The newspaper started writing about the guy. And other kids said, hey, let me start being a graffiti artist. Let me do better designs than this guy. So that kicked off the movement. We need to know where this stuff comes from. It comes from our experiences. And we have a very unique experience here that helps us create all of these different cultures.
Right. I'm glad you said it, because I think a lot of people needed to hear that, because no matter how much we fight online about, and then we always feel like we're trying to prove our culture to people that we shouldn't even have to prove our culture to. Like, you know what I mean? You know, obviously, your YouTube platform is huge. You stream on there damn almost every day. If y'all haven't seen his stream, I promise you, listen to his stream. Like, this dude is hilarious, man. So, but you know, a lot of times, you know, even in the Twitter spaces, people will accuse you of being divisive amongst in the diaspora. Like, what do you say to those people?
No, those are people who think that they can get away with denigrating us. And for a long time, we didn't trip on it too much, because there were a lot of people who were non-FBA who would low-key denigrate us. They would have all of these weird names for Foundation of Black Americans, like Akata, Jareer, Abid, Yanks. They had all these little weird terms. We didn't trip too much on it, because you're just talking shit. But when these people start getting over here and getting in political positions, and then they can dictate where our resources go, and they have that same anti-FBA disposition, now we're saying time out. When we have a Kamala Harris, who's non-FBA, but who cosplays as Black when it's convenient, and then Asian when it's convenient, when we have her dictating where our resources is gonna go, we have to say, hey, wait a minute, we don't want these people who are really not on code with us acting as our representatives, because that's very important. The dominant white society, they understand people who have a certain lineage, they will be on code with each other. So they let people get in political positions who don't have our lineage, like Barack Obama, Colin Powell, Eric Holder. These were people who didn't have any FBA lineage. So they put them in positions knowing that they would not do anything to help Black people, and it wouldn't mess with their conscience. Because if you do something to deny your people, it'll mess with your consciousness. People like Marion Barry, people can talk about him doing drugs or whatever, but he was a Foundation of Black American, and he did a lot of stuff for the people in DC. You will instinctively do things for the people from your lineage because you share a camaraderie with them. And the dominant society knows that. So they know how to kind of pit people against each other and get folks from different lineages to act as representatives. Like, for example, we got a reparations movement going on.
And, the rally for reparations.
Right, we got yeah. And early on, some years ago, when they were having these reparations committees that the dominant society, they were putting together, they purposely got people like Candace Owens, who identifies as Caribbean. They got a dude named Coleman Hughes, who's a Puerto Rican guy, who's aesthetically melanated like us, to speak on reparations as our representatives. And sure enough, they got up there saying, we don't need no reparations. Let's leave these good white folks alone. So that type
of narrative, I came from my country and I was able to work my way up. Why you guys can't do the same thing?
Right. So we got on the thing where we don't want all these non-FBA people trying to represent us, because they're not even entitled to what we're supposed to get anyway. So a lot of them have this whole scorched earth mentality. If they can't get nothing, the hell nobody can get nothing. And we don't need people like that representing us. And that's not divisive to say, hey, we don't need people trying to mislead us. Because they damn sure they won't let us do that over in their country. We can't go to Nigeria or Jamaica to try to represent them or misrepresent them. They'll stone us, man. They wouldn't let us do that.
So what do you say about, because the whole conversation about reparations, I know you have the rally for reparations June 15th in DC. And what do you think about the people that's saying that how you should distribute reparations, or what Black people should get reparations, or should all Black Americans get reparations? Like, what's that conversation?
No, the reparations should be strictly for Foundation of Black Americans, descendant of freedmen, because we were the ones who suffered in slavery. See, it's reparations for slavery. It's not reparations for racism, because a lot of people want to come on and get like, hey, I'm Black, I dealt with racism.
Selectively Black people.
Right. They're Black when it's convenient. The thing is, we can't let everybody say I'm black and I should get reparations because some of you voluntarily came over. You can't say I fought to get over here, but now I'm discriminated against, so I need some resources. No, this is our homeland. We've been here. We've been here from the beginning, and we were mistreated on our own homeland, and we have to get compensated. If we let other melanated people say, well, I'm black and I'm an immigrant and I should get reparations too, that opens the door for Hispanics. They can say, well, I was mistreated too. Asians can say, I was mistreated too. I need to get in on that. So that's going to open the door to a lot of bad things to happen, just like affirmative action. Affirmative action was supposed to be for black people.
Right.
Then we let them slip in one word and messed it all up. Minority. Nobody was using minority in the 1960s until 65. When we start saying we need to get something to be compensated, they say, well, let's do it for minorities. They slipped that word in, and everybody and their mama ran in the minority door and got affirmative action. And we're the last ones to get it. We didn't get nothing. White women started being minorities then. White gay men, white Hispanics, everybody's a minority. Handicapped people, they're minorities. So we're not playing those word games. So we tighten the language up by saying, hey, we are foundational Black Americans. We are a specific lineage and ethnic group, and we're supposed to get these resources that are owed to us because we have a specific debt.
Are we talking anything outside of money that we?
Money first.
Yeah.
That's going to be the first thing. Yeah, because what happens is when we were enslaved, they made money off our ass. They made billions of dollars off us. They didn't get student loan relief during slavery. They were getting money off of us.
That's true.
They were trading us on Wall Street out here in New York. We were money. We were the first capital. So they need to give that capital right back to us. And then we'll talk land grants and all of that stuff too. But let's get those checks going first, the same way they do with Native American tribes. The same way y'all give them money and then tax-free status and then the casinos, then land. Let's do it the same way with us.
Why do you think that these other races were able to be successful in their pursuit to get the reparations and not us?
Because they are buffer groups. They are buffer groups, and what happens is in the system of white supremacy, you have to have a bottom group, the group on top, and the group in the middle to stand in between the group on top. So they elevate these groups over us, and they do that deliberately so that we have to go through them first. And they'll fight for the white supremacists for their little crumbs. They don't have a problem being number two.
Right.
We as foundational Black Americans, we naturally rise to number one. That's why we always got to be suppressed. Anything we touch, we're going to go to the top. We touch golf, we're going to become Tiger Woods. We get a tennis racket, we're going to be Venus and damn Serena. We do a country record, we're going to be Beyonce with the number one country record. We have a natural tendency to rise to the top. We create Black Wall Streets, you understand, over and over again. That's why we're the first people on this land to be bombed from the air. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, they dropped bombs on those Black people to destroy their community because they were upset that Black people secretly became millionaires. What they did in Tulsa, Oklahoma, they just kind of threw Black people out there, saying, just going out there. That's like no man's land. We don't see you. We don't want to see y'all niggas. Then they turn around and saw all of these mansions and cars and like, hey, what the hell did these niggas do? Then they had to destroy it. And they do that to all of the things we do.
When you look at right now, if you look at the spending habits of Black Americans in this country, we tend to spend a lot on non-Black goods, luxury goods, fast food, hair, beauty products. Are you afraid that if we are given a reparations, that we will just spend it on frivolous things and give it right back?
There were some who will do that. And you know, the frivolous thing, that's fine because that'll stimulate the economy. Reparations will be great for the economy because we will stimulate and bounce the money in the economy. And the dominant society, they'll say, well, we don't want to give y'all Negroes reparations. You're going to be so irresponsible. If they thought that, they wouldn't have a problem with it. They know that if we get equal footing financially, well, we're going to have Tyler Perry's and Bob Johnson's.
Everybody going to be.
Boy, we're going to have cats balling the hell out. They know that. They know that we got people who got the ingenuity to create all types of industries that's going to rival what we have going on out here now. So that's the real problem. They don't want us to get too much of a strong financial footing in this country because we can do that with the deprivation that we have. We can create things even out of the deprivation. Look at the Birdmans and the Jay Princes and people like that who have been denied resources, and we can still pull things together. So just imagine if we get equal footing.
Now, that's fair. You got a lot of optimism. I don't share that same optimism.
Why not?
Because I'm just looking at the spending habits, the lack of financial literacy we have, and I don't think it'll be any good if we just give that money right back. We're going to be in the same position with Gucci shoes and a trailer.
Let them get them.
Made out of
What's
gold,
wrong with? Look, if a motherfucker want to get a reparation check and smoke crack, what's wrong with let him smoke his crack? Let him. The Native Americans, look, they give them. You go to a reservation, they be drunk,
ayahuasca and all.
Do they be high on or peyote, all that shit? They be drunk. Let them. They don't mind. Let them get drunk. But then some of them are gonna run them casinos, just like with us. Yeah, we're gonna get some Negroes out here drinking Hennessy and getting Jordans and all that. But you're gonna have some people out here buying land,
iced out Hennessy bottle,
right?
You know
but you're gonna get some cats out here creating some tech stuff. They're gonna be creating inventions and doing some wonderful things with the money too. We have a lot of ingenuity. So that's the great thing about foundational Black Americans. There's a balance, man. Yeah. We got a lot of riffraffs and we got a lot of phenomenal, iconic people. That's a good thing. I don't focus on the riffraffs. There's always going to be a riffraff. I want to see what our iconic people are going to do, what our geniuses are going to do. That's the thing we should look at, and that's what the dominant society, that's what they're afraid of. They know our geniuses are going to turn up when we get that money and do phenomenal things.
And it don't have to be a large percentage.
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
But I'm more afraid of the people that's in our community that look like us, that's not willing to protect those type of people. You get what I'm saying?
That's if we get the money, look at our community the way it is. Our communities, we got the ox on every corner. We got everybody the Chinese on the liquor store. We just gonna be giving them the money, like, you know what I mean? And then they're already in our community profiting off of Black people, like, you know what I'm saying? So we're just gonna go right to the liquor store. We're not gonna buy the liquor store. We're gonna just spend all our money at the liquor store, like, you know what I mean?
But then it's going, like you say, it's gonna be that one dude. I'm like, you know what? I'm buying this liquor store now.
And see, this is why we're gonna have people who are going to use that money and use it to get political power. See, why do we have Asians and all of these other groups who own the liquor stores on the corner? That's a political thing, because the political structure gives them a leg up and they deprive us. The reason why we don't have this, and I own a museum out in Los Angeles, and we deal with this. With Black people, the city and they play these little permit games with us. Yeah. We got to get a special permit for this, a special permit for that. There's a noise ordinance. They play these little games because we don't have our people in the political positions. They use these buffer classes to get these businesses, and they don't target them the way they target us. They let the Asian business owner sell rat sandwiches. The sink is dirty, food all on the floor. They don't go in there and stop them. They got weird stuff going on in the back. They're trapping in there in some of these places. With us, man, we got to be on our P's and Q's. And they still try to shut us down. I talk to Black business owners all the time, and the city's always trying to do something weird to a Black business. So when we get our money, we can get more politically established so that we can stop that paperwork sabotage that go on, so that we can have our businesses thrive in the communities like they should thrive.
Would you say that we make it easier for them to, take us down, because we'll see a Black store, a Black-owned store, and we wouldn't go to that one. We'll still go right back to Ox or whatever the case may be.
And yeah, there's some people who are like that. There are some people who will be on some Sambo stuff, but we will support a Black business. Look, I've seen when I'm in New York, I go to Harlem all the time. I go to the soul food restaurants. They're jam packed. We support them. Some of the Black clothing stores, we go to them. We support them. So we do support some of the people who give us good service. Look, I'm a Black owned business owner. People came out by the thousands to see my movie this weekend. So if you are in the community and you care for the community, and people see that you're down, they're going to support. That's the thing about us. We will support.
Yeah, maybe we got to do, we just got to do a better job being more optimistic. We always looking at everything from a negative, the worst possible aspect, and I think we should focus on being more optimistic.
Right.
So, going to this whole voting system, right? How do you think Black people should go about exercising their voting power? Because every year, every election, we vote Democratic, you know what I mean? We don't get nothing out of it. It seems like every other community gets something out of it except for us. So how do we move going forward? Because I'm tired of hearing you should vote because your ancestors died for you to have the right to vote. How do we go and actually make a change with our voting power?
We got to be strategic with our vote, and we have to be able to withhold our vote if need be, and withhold it for the right candidate. We shouldn't just be married to one party, and we shouldn't look at these parties as our buddies. Look, LBJ, Lyndon B. Johnson, was a stone cold racist back in the 1960s. The FBI got him on tape calling Martin Luther King all types of niggas and all that. But he was the one who actually passed the Civil Rights Act. because of the riots that were going on. Black people were in the streets turning up, and we forced their hand. We forced them to say, hey, we're going to have to do something for Black folks. I don't care who it comes from, Donald Trump, whoever. If we want tangibles and somebody's going to give us tangibles, that's who we support. What happens is politicians come around us and then they start hugging and kissing, and they get into this whole kumbaya thing that we got to stop falling for. They come around with catfish nuggets and all of this hot sauce and dancing the Dougie and all of this goofy ass stuff. And we got to stop that performative nonsense and thinking, okay, these people are our friend and we got to support them. No, we got to get something from them. What are they going to do to enhance us financially? And we need to withhold our vote until we get that. So we got to be very strategic with everything we do.
I like what Cube did, or what he tried to implement was, getting something down written on paper.
Yes.
That way we could hold these politicians accountable. So when they don't do X, Y, and Z, I don't know what the ramifications may be. We could sue that party or whatever the case is. What's your thoughts on like Ice Cube's whole strategy about getting something written down on paper and getting these politicians to sign it?
Yeah, that comes from Dr. Claude Anderson. He talks about how we should get these politicians to make a commitment, and if they don't make a commitment, we get them out of office. I'm a big proponent of withholding the vote. If you strategically withhold your vote, that's going to cause a panic in the system, because it's very imperative that they get us involved in the system. If we are delegitimizing the system by not participating, they look at that as dangerous, because they look at those people as the next revolutionaries. Just instinctively, if you don't believe in a system, you're going to create your own system. And they know that's a problem, because we can do it. We have the ingenuity to create our own system. So they have to get us on their treadmill. So if you want us on the treadmill, you better give us something to get on it. If you're not giving us anything, we're going to create our own treadmill, and that's going to rival yours. So we got to have that kind of mindset.
That would take a lot to organize, and I agree with it 100%. But if us, Black men and Black women can't even get shit settled in our homes, how would you expect us to be organized enough to do something like that?
We rally around a cause. I'll give you an example. Let's go back to hip hop in our film. Right now, the corporate structure, they've been denigrating hip hop, denigrating our culture, telling lies about our culture. We said on a grassroots level, we're going to raise money. We did a Kickstarter to get the money for the movie Microphone Check. We did it on our own. It became successful around the country without the corporate structure. Now that it is successful, all of the corporate entities are calling me. I've been doing interviews with corporate structures all week. When they can't beat you, they will join you. When you get on code with your group and understand that there's a bigger play here that we have to rally around, and there's a mission that we have to get codified around, that's going to make everybody else stand in line, because the corporate structures see the money that we're making. When they see us independently making all of this money and making all these moves, they say, we got to get in on that shit. We got to get in on it.
But with us being such a small percentage of the U.S., like how do you think that would work though?
We're a small percentage, but man, we have $1 trillion spending power. That's a lot of money. You understand that?
That's easy.
They've monitored our spending. We spend a lot of money as Black people. They watch that, and they try to figure out ways to funnel it to themselves. We are the talent in this country. When you look at sports, look at all of our iconic stars. That's why they had a problem with Cube doing the big three. That's a smart thing he's doing. So they're trying to kind of low-key co-opt Cube. They want to get in on that. So when we start doing things on our own, that makes them want to get on it. So we have to tell them, if you're not going to give us what we need, we're going to do our own thing. And when we do our own thing, that's going to rival yours.
And that made me think about Kyrie. I remember Kyrie, he was just like, yo, why don't we just make our own league? Like, he was talking about all that, the NBA players. And then right after that, that's when they started having all these Black Lives Matter. It was real active with the Black Lives Matter and seeing that they were supportive of Black people to get everybody's minds off of that.
Kyrie is an executive producer on Microphone Check.
Is he?
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, that's dope.
Shout out to Kyrie. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's dope. Before we get up out of here, I just want to ask you this question real quick. What do you think is the overall image or like perception of Black men in today's society?
If we let the dominant white society dictate what the image is, it's always going to be negative, which it has always been that. Since the late 1800s, they've always had a negative portrayal of us. It's all about how we see ourselves. it's very important that we control the narratives. That's why I did the Hidden Colors movie. When I did the Hidden Colors movie, I started doing it around 2010. What did we see around 2008, 9, 10? At that time, there were so many negative portrayals of Black people. It was pathetic. The movies that were out at the time was The Help, Precious, The Butler, The Blind Side, these weird, moping, dopey acting Black people who had to be saved by white folks. And that was putting a cloud in the minds of Black people. I said, we have to counter this stuff with something. And everybody kept saying, well, we need somebody in Hollywood to put together a movie about something positive. So I said, hey, let us do it. Let us raise the money and let's put out films about our positive history. So we raised the money and put out the first Hidden Colors movie. That blew up, and then we did a whole series about it. The Hidden Colors series ushered in the whole woke movement. It came from the Hidden Colors movement. And that just shows the ingenuity of us when we say we're going to take control of our image and our narrative and not let the dominant society portray who we are. And they stopped making movies like that, by the way. Yeah. You don't see that dopey Blind Side bullshit no more because we said
a slave movie in forever. Like
yeah,
they
right.
Every 4 years, 4 or 5 years.
Right. That was because of the grassroots said, hey, enough of that. We're more than that now. We can do better. So then we started to get the Black Panthers and all of that stuff.
Nat Turner, wasn't that Nat
Turner? Yeah, that was Birth of a Nation. Yes, indeed.
So I think that's important is for, Black men to really take control of the narrative because I feel like, especially in our society, everybody's telling the narrative of Black men except for Black men. Like, you got one side saying y'all thugs, y'all murderers, y'all abusers, y'all deadbeats. We got all of these negative things and we rarely hear any positive things. And I think it does go back to, even having platforms like this where we could just have these conversations.
I was just about to say that. YouTube platforms where Black men are sitting here talking like we got sense. That's what we need more of because white people, they will look, or white supremacists, they like Negroes who are goofy and silly. They like platforms where dudes, these little gaming dudes, and I'm not going to call some of these dudes names, where dudes are just doing the weirdest, wackiest bullshit ever. White people love that type of shit. When we're chopping up game like we're chopping up now, this is what we're supposed to do. We're taking control of the narrative, showing, and you guys are getting good numbers, showing that we don't have to be goofballs in order to get an audience to have an intelligent conversation and an intelligent dialogue. We can be silly sometimes and goofy sometimes, but as long as there's balance. I roast the shit out of people on my broadcast. But then I'm gonna say something, I go to the gutter. I go real gutter sometimes. I shame my wife. She's like, why are you talking about people so bad? But then I balance it off. You know what I'm saying? So there has to be, as long as there's a balance sometimes.
Speaking of balance, right? How do we gain the trust and respect of our women? We always get the, we ain't shit. And I don't think that's how every woman thinks, but that's the narrative that's being spread. So what do we do to erase that or change that narrative? Like from ground level?
You have to go in the situation like a boss. You have to be a boss in the relationship. And being a boss is not a negative thing. That doesn't mean a dictator.
A boss means fine. You got to make more than her for her to listen now.
Not even that. No, you have to demand respect in that household because sometimes if guys think if a woman is making more money, and sometimes women think if they're making a little more money, they can kind of talk to niggas a certain way. No, I don't care how much money you're making. There's going to have to be respect here, or I'm not going to be here. So you can't be no kept dude because if you're a kept dude, that's going to make her show a level of disrespect for you. Just
understandable.
Yeah, so you got to go in there like a boss no matter how much money you make, but you can't be a bum. You understand?
Yeah, agree.
In order to be a boss, you got to have something going on.
Agree, 100%.
And the woman has to know. And when I mean something going on, not just dreams, not just you sitting up here fantasizing about your rap career, whatever. You got to have something tangible going on.
Some motion.
Yeah.
So before we get up out here, how would you define, if I had to ask you, how do you define this? How would you define Black culture or FBA culture? If you give like one word or maybe a sentence, how would you define it?
FBA culture is diverse and iconic. Foundational Black Americans, we're the only group who have internationally respected and revered heroes and icons. We're the only people who have internationally respected people like Dr. King, Malcolm X, Ida B. Wells, Rosa Parks, Muhammad Ali, Tupac. We have so many globally respected icons that other people just don't have. Yeah, we have our riffraffs, but we can balance it out with our icons because we've done some phenomenal things as foundational Black Americans, and we created a phenomenal nation. The reason why America is phenomenal is because we made it phenomenal. We were exploited by the white supremacists, but the culture and all of the things that make this country great, that came from foundational Black Americans.
Mm-hmm. Listen, man, we've been trying to get you for the longest, man. We appreciate you for finally coming on.
Man.
Let the folks know where they can find the
microphone check. Yeah, Eric, go to microphonecheck.com. You can get the Blu-ray. We're going to have the movie back in theaters again because of the success of the Memorial Day run. It's going to be in more theaters around the country. Even if you get the Blu-ray, go see it in a theater with your friends, your family. The vibe is real different. You're really going to love the vibe. We got standing ovations in all of the cities that the film played in. So when it goes back in theaters, definitely go see it again. But this is a film that is necessary. It's going to be taught in schools. It's that important and that deep. So microphonecheck.com.
We appreciate for pulling up.
Yes, indeed.
Again, hit that like button, subscribe if y'all not already subscribed.
Join
the
that membership. Yeah.
Cop the merch, man. Dailyrapupcrew.co, man.
Don't look at that nigga.
Yeah, I don't know what he wearing, man. Like he says, what that say? Oh, I'm not even gonna say it. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, man. Like,